Thanks, Tim.
Good to see you.
Good to see you.
Okay, so just before I commence, I'd just like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the lands on which we meet today and pay my respects to their elders past and present. And I will say that traditional owner engagement with this program is something that we need to work on. So I'm speaking to you today as the independent chair of the COTS Control Partnership Group, or the CPG as it's become known, and I'm presenting on behalf of the members of that committee and others who've contributed to it over time. So I'll just talk briefly about the COTS program under the Reef Trust Partnership era, the partnership group itself as a governing mechanism, and some lessons learned. I think that's, there's a lot of, it's a good time to reflect, and I guess a bit on what next. So just the COTS control program under the RTP, you've heard a lot about it. I guess, of that 444 million that went into that partnership, about 57, 58 million went into the COTS space. And that you can see the 8 components of that. The most of that money though, about 75% of it went into the control program, so about 42 million, and that's what I'll talk about today. The group that I'm talking about was responsible for sort of governing that piece. It's important to understand, and it's been talked about a lot this week, that RTP investment was very much in control, was very heavily influenced by work done in the Nest Tropical Water Quality Hub on bringing integrated pest management into the management of COTS on the reef. And so you can see we went from sort of having 1 boat to 5 boats in this era, so that was very much informed by the IPM work that was done. But you can see that the 42 million doesn't last long in that context, so we were able to ramp up to 5 boats. I think you'll see that we had a bit of a surge to try and get on top of the things in the north with some involvement of the tourism industry, so I think we got up to 7 boats at one point. But you can see that one of the things this group had to contemplate pretty early on was that we didn't have that to sustain out into the future. So fortunately in the, 2022 budget, part of the extra $1 billion that went into the reef, there was about 167 million committed to the COTS control program on an ongoing basis, and so it's now fantastic that that's sustained out to 2030. That was a very important thing to happen. But I am still talking about the bit in the dark blue on the left. That's kind of what we've been dealing with here, and you can see that the transition of that's just about to happen fully, where GBRMPA have the money now to manage that program, and the GBRF's role in that process is coming to an end. So just about the group itself as a governing mechanism. So myself as independent chair, obviously the foundation have been at the table, the Reef and Rainforest Research Corporation and GBRMPA in a couple of roles, and then we've had the CCIP director on that group as well. It's really been about sort of managing the implementation of that program, and the work's actually done by 3 operators, Inlock, Blue Planet Marine and Pacific Marine Group. And there's also, as I said, contributions from the tourism industry. In the grey box there around the edges, I'm just showing that there are interactions with the research program, traditional owner training, for example, and other components of the RTP, and I think the CPG has provided a very useful sort of linking mechanism to those other components of the COTS program that I spoke about at the start. How's it worked? Quarterly meetings sort of timed around planning and reporting cycles, pretty standard stuff. I think it's been useful to form working groups on some particular issues that we had to get on top of, like we've worked quite hard to get clear program metrics so we understand, how do we know this program is being successful or not? What are we actually aiming for? And I think we've also sort of been focused as a group on our own performance. We've done sort of self-evaluation and so on. If I could sum it up, I'd really say that it's been about trying to build trust and confidence in a quantitative, integrated, collaborative approach to COTS, which wasn't where we started. Kind of what it does under its terms of reference is probably really 3 things. We endorse the annual work plan for the COTS program, so you can see the group there. I think you've seen that slide before, and one of the things to highlight in that slide is that the GBRMPA or the Reef Authority managers are there, but there's a lot of scientists there helping them with that. The actual operators are in the room as well, which is really, I think, a fantastic development. I'll come on to that in a minute. We also endorsed the annual progress report for the program, so you can see the dashboard there. And again, I think we'll talk a bit more about that. And then it's really about then trying to provide some strategic oversight of the relationships, the initiatives and innovation, and a bit of a focus on risk management. I was interested to see Sue's group flying their plane with a single propeller. I'm going to do the risk assessment on that one. So I think one of the things that's been really interesting about this is that what's almost spun up of its own accord is the COTS Action Group. And really, I think that's kind of been the key to the success of this. I'd say the CPC's created an environment, a collaborative partnership environment where that could happen, but it really hasn't kind of controlled that activity in a sense. And I think that's really been where all the people come together, the managers, the researchers, the operators are bringing a huge amount to the table. I think a shout out particularly to Dave Williamson and Rick Abom in the room, who've really led that process. They hand the chair to one another. And they're really on the ground talking about the nitty-gritty stuff around safety, around data, sharing across those all those entities. And I would say that's sort of been a real highlight of what's happened in the last few years. Lessons learned. So I think the key achievements really are around investment in a quantitative COTS control program using IPM, so building on that network, sharing data from all operators and sources. When we started this, there was a view that we shouldn't share data across the various operators, and we worked our way through that. I have a very strong view that publicly funded data should be publicly available, and I think we've really come a long way, and those dashboards that we're now able to see are really built on that foundation of collecting and sharing the data and putting it together and creating a bigger picture than we could have otherwise. I think having clear metrics for the program, trying to, how many reefs we're trying to target, how much coral are we trying to protect, being very clear about all that's been really great to work towards those targets. And as I said, increasingly we've gone from very long-winded manual reporting to dashboards that really sum up that information very well. So we've sort of really gone from, those blue boxes are really meant to represent that journey. I think when we started out it was pretty qualitative, pretty siloed, somewhat competitive, quite input-focused and manual, and we've really moved towards a basis that's quantitative, integrated, collaborative, input, impact-focused and automated, and that's really where we need to stay and keep going down that path. I think, it's probably important just to tease out the principles that underline that. So I think, first of all, recognising that COTS, controlling COTS at that scale, and it's a big, I think we heard yesterday 120 divers in the program. That's a big program. It really does require a lot of collaboration and establishing a basis for the partners to work together. So I think being open and transparent has been really important, sharing information, making sure that we can access all the data we need and collective decision making. It kind of be the principles, and they're things that regardless of the funding or delivery model, we need to hang on to those principles and move forward in that way. Defining roles and accountabilities has been really important. So GBRF have played the role of a program manager. That's transitioning fully to GBRMPA now from July. We've had the implementation managers in Reef and Rainforest Corporation and GBRMPA playing that role. And we've had the operators in LOC, Blue Planet Marine and Pacific Marine Group. And that role clarity will remain really important as we go forward. And I think, as I said, connecting the strategy to the operations has really been key. And I think, formalising and supporting that action group going forward is a really important thing to do. So what next? Basically, all parties support the continuation of that kind of approach, even though the institutional roles might change to some extent. We have been slow, I think, on the traditional owner front for a variety of reasons, but that EOI is now out there and we're looking for a traditional owner member, and we look forward to moving forward on that basis. And that connection between research and operation it's really been crucial to the progress we've made in this program. We really need to keep that going, and we've done some work last year to develop a future roadmap for COTS research and innovation, and it's pretty important that we find a way to implement that. So in summary, you can read that, but you can see that program's grown considerably in that time, and it's now sustained out to 2030, which is great. The partnership group's proved to be, I think, an effective mechanism for creating the environment for that to happen. We understand the principles of success. We've got to hang on to those. All the parties support continuing to work in this way, and that connection between research and operation is key to taking us forward. So that's me with a couple of minutes left, Shine. I'm told I speak too quick, sorry about that.
No, that's okay, I love it. Yes, we've got plenty of time for a few questions. Any for Tim? What about, oh, there we are.
Emma Lawrence from CSIRO, and I admit I work in the COTS space. So I came to the COTS space a couple of years ago, but I've worked in the science policy interface for many years. My question is, well, first of all, a statement. It's really quite impressive how far COTS Control has come in the last few years, right? And that scientists working with managers, working with industry to implement something in the field is quite an impressive feat. So my question is, how do we get the message out? And, you know, it's almost, there's warts, but it's a poster child, right, for how all those groups of people work together to implement something that's really effective. How do we get the message out beyond this group of people to show how effective it's actually been?
Well, I think we built a lot of champions for that through the process, and you'll work in other domains and you'll take that with you. Look, I think we do have to acknowledge that we've had $444 million to do it this way, and so I think it's great that we have built that. I think the test of it all will be how will we go when the money's not so, there's not so much money around. Will we fragment and go back into our institutional pockets? I sincerely hope not, and I kind of, the optimist in me believes that we will steer that course because it's been proven to work very well. And I do think, one of the things I've found is not just the managers and the scientists, but having the operators in the room has been so powerful. They bring so much to the table, and they all say they've really enjoyed that experience. Because they're often, they're asked to do things for research, they don't really know why. And having them involved has been, I think, a real key to it. So that's another part of that, I think. Not shying away from, we've got to respect commercial requirements, right? But that's not a reason to keep people at arm's length. I think bringing them into the room has been proven to be really powerful. Don't know what to say other than that, but well done.
Thanks, Tim. Anyone else? What about the online? I think you've slayed them.
Doubt that's like,
so thanks, Tim, and everyone join me.
Thank you.